How are we going to get 45? Sorry, Gavin, where'd you go? All right, we're ready. So here's the deal. Do you agree if I were to plug in a 5 here? If I were to plug in a 5, I'm going to get 0 over 0, correct? 25 minus root 5 minus root, okay, yeah, we're getting 0 over 0. So here's what we got to do. Could we factor the top? We could, she says, yeah. We could factor the top. Let's do it. Limit as x approaches 5. What's the top factor into? X plus 5, x minus 5. But does anything cancel? Gross, right? So that's not, if I plug in a 5, I'm still going to get 0 over 0. So again, today is just kind of giving us some more tools for our toolbox. Is there anything we could multiply by? You don't want to square it because that wouldn't cancel out some things. Yeah?
Can we multiply both sides by what's on the bottom?
So close. What's on the bottom with a different, yep, is called the
Conjugate.
Conjugate. We're going to multiply by the conjugate, you guys. Multiplying by the conjugate, as Lebeo said, is whatever was in the denominator with an opposite sign. So I'm going to say don't distribute because wasn't this already distributed there? We factored it out. I want you to keep it all factored out because hopefully something cancels out. Let's distribute just the bottom. So when we keep the top, we've got madness in the top that I'm just going to leave, hoping that something cancels out. We got an x plus 5, an x minus 5, and a root x plus a root 5. What happens when I distribute root x times root x? We just get x. Then what about root x times a root 5? They're both under the root, so they stay under the root. And it would turn into, yeah, root 5x plus a root 5x. What about this one? Minus, they're both still under the root, so minus root 5x. Root 5 times root 5, so minus 5. Hey, are things canceling?
Yes.
Okay. Come here, Gavin. Come here, Bubba. Here you go. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. What's going to happen here? Those cancel. So what am I left with on the bottom?
X minus 5.
Hey, I'm left with an x minus 5. Is there an x minus 5 anywhere else?
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom. Now that we've canceled out the whole, now we can reevaluate that limit. If you don't want to write it in again, you could technically just plug in that 5 right here. But if you're like, oh, this is a little sloppy, I'm going to write it again. I feel you. So once you cancel out that whole or vertical asymptote or things like that, we just go to put that limit back in. Our guess was 45. That's what we said our limit was from the graph. What is 5 plus 5 going to get me here? 10 times, what is root 5 plus a root 5? What's 1 root 5 plus 1 root 5? 2 root 5s. 10 times 2 root 5s. Anyone simplify that? Anything outside the root can get multiplied. Anything inside the root needs to stay inside. 20 root 5. And you're like, but wait, our guess was 45. Well, look what 20 root 5 is. 44.7. Pretty accurate from our graph. On this guy, do you agree? Ooh, does anyone remember pi over 2? At sine at pi over 2? 1. So what's 1 minus 1 squared? 0 over cosine at pi over 2? 0 over 0. Ugh. Even if I did difference of squares up here with 1 plus sine, 1 minus sine, nothing's going to cancel out with a cosine. Does anyone remember? Something about cosine squared and 1 and sine squared.
Cosine squared or plus sine squared is 1.
Equals 1. This is the Pythagorean identity that we tattooed on ourselves last year, you guys. Sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So if I know that identity, could I rewrite this at all?
If you could multiply by cosine squared.
I mean, I could do cosine squared over cosine squared on the top, but I don't think it'll help, though. Could I replace this, though? 1 minus sine squared would leave me with the cosine squared. Okay. So you're saying the limit as x approaches pi over 2 is cosine squared over a cosine? Okay, now is something maybe able to cancel out? Yeah, now that I've got a cosine on the top and a cosine on the bottom, I can get rid of one of them from the top. Does that sound like a deal? And so I'm just left with the limit as x approaches pi over 2 of cosine of x. Then we can plug in that x. What is the cosine up there? 0. You can have a limit be 0. We cannot have a limit be 0 over 0. But this is just 0 over 1. And that's our final answer. So we always just plug it in to start, always. What do we get on top? 12 over 6. And guess what? You're done. Those are the ones we want. This has been an AP test question right there. Because sometimes people are like, oh, it's going to be 0 over 0, and we forget to plug in. Always plug it in and double check. It says, using the function above, find the limit as t approaches -2. Did they specify from either side? If they didn't specify from either side, what do we have to do? From both sides. You go check it from both sides. Do I care what happens at -2? I don't care what happens. This is superfluous. That is not even going to help us because limits aren't what happens at a point. It's what happens as we approach that point, okay? So we're going to want to say the limit, oh, this got a fat pen, as t approaches -2 from the left. You could do either one first. I just chose from the left. I don't know why. Which function do I want to look at if I'm coming at it from the left? Top function or bottom function? -2 from the left. Left means less. Left means less. So I'm going to say of 3t plus 3. Let's go plug that in. Do I have to worry about the superscript when I plug it in? Nope. I'm just going to go boop. What do we get when I plug in 3 times -2 plus 3? -3. Let's evaluate this from the right-hand side. Let's see if this limit does exist. Limit as t approaches -2, then from the right side. Because if it doesn't specify, we got to do both. And you agree if we're coming in from the right side of -2, all those numbers are greater than -2. That's why we're going to use our t squared minus t minus 9. Okay, plug in a -2 there. What are you going to get? 4 minus -2 minus 9?
So the same.
Yeah, because they equal the same thing, does the limit exist? Yeah, so we would just say, I would probably put it right here. Like, that's my answer right here. The limit is -3. What if one was -3 and the other was -13? Does not exist. Do we have to check both of them? Yeah. Did they want you to think, oh, but it has, the value here isn't -3. They want you to look at that and either say the answer is 0 or it doesn't exist because it's not the same. It doesn't matter. Limits are what happens as we approach that -2, not at -2. Cool, cool? So what this says, we've got this squeeze theorem. Literally, we're squeezing things, okay? It says, exposure. So let me give you an example. It says if f is less than g, which is less than h, which of these three functions would be the biggest one, g, f, or h? H, right? So I want you to just draw a little graph and be like, this is my h of x. And then which one would have been the smallest graph? F, right? So then I'm going to go, this is going to be the f. And G is right in between them. G is right between. So I'm going to go like this. Woo! Woo! Okay, G just fits in between. This is my example of the squeeze theorem because it says if f has a limit of L, so we're going to say, I'm sorry, this f function, if it has a limit of L here, okay, and h also has a limit of L here, then if G's in between it, it also has to have a limit of L. It's a little common sensey. We don't have to do too much with it. I just want to expose you to it. Some people also call it the sandwich theorem. It's sandwiched between blue and purple are my bread, and the crazy function is the meat. So here's how the heck we do it. Here's how we do it. Do you agree a sine function has to be bigger and smaller than what? What's the biggest y value on the unit circle? What's the smallest y value on the unit circle? 1 and -1. So it's got to be less than 1, but bigger than or equal to -1. And then Are we comfortable saying it doesn't matter what the angle is? It could be 1 over x. It could be any angle. No matter what the angle is of sine, it can never go bigger than 1 or smaller than -1. Let me prove that. You do. Doesn't matter what you do to the angle. Sine functions are always bounded between 1 and -1. Here's the deal. The whole point of this is to squeeze this madness function in between two better known functions. Right now we're between -1 and 1, but this doesn't quite match that yet, right? This is missing an x squared. So if I'm like, well, if this guy needs an x squared here, if I multiply the middle function by an x squared, I need to multiply everything by an x squared. Because if I gave everybody candy, which I will get next week, Lincoln and I are going to Costco today because we need candy, okay? For my class. I mean, I want it too, but you know. All right, what is -1 times x squared? -x squared. And then could I just say x squared times the sine of 1 over x? And that looks like what we started with over here. And then 1 times x squared is x squared. So you guys, what I've just done is I've built this function between two things that I've known, and then I've just modified it to make it look like what I need. Because they're saying, show that that limit is 0. Here's the deal. The limit as x approaches 0, what we're going to say is what is the limit as x approaches 0 now of these knowns? This guy, I don't know, but if I can sandwich it between two things that I do know, I can deduce. Meaning, what happens when you throw in a 0 and you square it and you make it negative? 0, right? So 0 is less than or equal to, I can analyze my, my limit over here. What happens when I have 0 squared? So if you're saying this function is got to be less than or equal to 0 and greater than or equal to 0, what does the limit of this function have to be? 0. That's the squeeze theorem, people. And I get that, like, I'm not expecting you to be like, oh my God, I could totally do that now. We can just say by the squeeze theorem. I just want to expose you to it. All right, people, we're going to do something similar. What about cosine? This graph, sine of x is less than 0. 1 divided by 0. Oh, sorry, 1 divided infinitely many times will get us 0.